better bull market despite the problems of the stock market day in, day out so far this year. We're now seeing people understand.
Okay, so David, we've seen record levels in terms of wind levels, but how did that translate into consumption? In the UK, for example, are they being able to harness that energy and really put it to good use?
Well, at the moment, consumption still rises as the economy picks up in the UK from its past depression. But certainly, I think what people are finding more and more is that household consumption of electricity continues to rise. At the same time, prices are going up more than inflation, and households are starting to look at the viability as an alternative of switching over to solar and to wind. And capacity is now becoming more and more plentiful, and you see Scotland and the UK growing to the point where Scotland's almost self-sufficient from household energy use now from wind alone. So it really is more acceptable and a viable alternative.
As a Scot, I can understand why not. It's the windiest place on the
yes,
on the earth at times. But if we look kind of globally, we had COP21 last month. It was deemed a success. For the first time, we had an agreement that may, if it's implemented correctly, limit climate change to 2 degrees. Mm-hmm. However, as soon as the agreement was made, the ink wasn't even dry yet, and there was already some signs of potential backpedaling, as it were.
Right.
What do you think? Was it a success? Was it a game changer?
I think a success for highlighting a unified approach through the United Nations to what's happening with the world. Realistically, 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels, that's a basic rewind of what we've been doing economically for the last 100 years or 150 years. I think what will happen, there'll be realism setting in here, but certainly the days of fossil fuels enjoying $600 billion globally of subsidies will end. There'll be money reallocating resources towards renewable energy, as well as downsizing the fossil fuel industries or giving grants to convert from old style industries to new style industries. It's a very tough target to meet, I think, but certainly the focus, unified, is to one of a drastic change to saving this planet.
Indeed, I guess it's just good that everyone seems to be at least pretending to be on the same page at one point. But I mean, you sent me a really great video of Obama's latest address.
Right.
He is very vocal in his stance about climate change and what he wants to achieve, what he hopes for America and beyond. However, big election year coming. Are you confident about the different efforts which are being kind of operated worldwide, the different incentives energy-wise? How do you feel about them?
Right. Well, of course, sitting here in Switzerland, they've embraced solar, but they haven't yet understood what wind can do. So Switzerland even doesn't have at parliamentary level initiatives or incentives for people to switch to wind power, apart from a few unsightly large wind turbines in strategic, beautiful valleys. You look at Denmark as a contrast. July of last year, they were generating 140% of their national needs from wind and were exporting electricity made from wind into Germany, Norway, Sweden. They've created an export industry for power from wind power alone. So some countries are very developed and embracing this, others are slow to respond. UK is in between. It's got a great wind footprint. The government is tightening its belt still through austerity and trying to limit the subsidies it gives. But certainly I can understand with solar, yes, the weather isn't the greatest for supporting solar in the UK, but wind power is growing more and more, and you saw record electricity produced from wind in the UK, be it quarterly, annually. I think in December alone, 17% of UK's energy requirement was generated from wind power alone. So the UK is getting it, Northern Europe is getting it, even the US. Last night, in harness with the COP21 of November, December last year in Paris, the world is starting to really figure out that wind is viable, solar is viable, and combined they can do an awful lot to improve the atmosphere and the climate. And then you look at the developing economies. You can't breathe in India. Look at Delhi with the traffic problems they have there and the tremendous smog. And Beijing is becoming legendary. And it's not just Beijing, but towns like Shanghai and Shenzhen. Terrible, terrible pollution, which will lead to strains on the health system in the next 10, 20 years with people with lung ailments. They also, as big economies and 40% of the world's population is represented by those two countries, they are also embracing this. They're trying to get away from coal now, getting away from fossil fuel, and renewable energy is the best alternative they can go with.
Indeed. And just lastly, David, what about City Windmills? What's happening in the next 5 years for you?
We could be sitting in a better bull market despite the problems of the stock market day in, day out so far this year. we're now seeing people understand that wind is viable. And at a more particular level for us, you'll see this big blizzard hitting the United States this weekend. You've got 30 to 50 mile an hour winds blowing, and you've got 24 inches of snow, which means trees will come down and take out the power lines. But if you have a small wind turbine on your roof and that strong wind, your lights will be blazing and your internet will be working without the neighbourhood sitting there in darkness.
Well, it certainly does seem to be the future. David, thank you so much for coming in, catching up with us and telling us all about it from your point of view. Thank you.
Thank you and Happy New Year.
Thank you, same to you. Okay, well that's all from David and myself for the moment. More exclusive interviews coming your way on Dukascopy TV. Please do keep clicking back. Bye for now.